Hi there. Welcome back to the Big Thinker universe, where we share big ideas that have a big impact on our audience. Today, I want to introduce you to Parker Promptwell. And yes, Parker is a figment of my imagination. However, she is also the personification of what I consider to be an excellent prompt engineer. Now, first and foremost, you might wonder, why do I care, Jeff? You're ranting about this catalyst crew you've got. Parker is someone I'm unleashing in the world, and I'm giving people access to Parker for free. Now, Parker has been trained as a prompt engineer, and she knows what to do to generate prompts. Why might you care? Well, I get a lot of people who come to me and say, Jeff, AI is a waste of time. I don't know how to use AI. I'm not going to waste the time to learn it. Those people, I wish you well. I promise you, if you're not learning AI, somebody in your industry is. And you don't need to be afraid of AI. You need to be afraid of a competitor who masters AI. So my goal is to allow businesses, large and small, to find ways to seamlessly and easily implement artificial intelligence. Now, my artificial intelligence of choice is ChatGPT. And the reason for that is I believe that ChatGPT is the best tool for me at this time because I've spent a few hours, probably several thousand, learning how to master it. And the vast majority of what I do deals with language, processing, editing, writing, creating, and things like that. Even turning my podcast episodes into transcripts. So, what I did, the very first thing I did was I created Parker because I wanted people to understand how important a good prompt is. So I'm going to introduce you to Parker. I'm going to show you how to work with her. And more importantly, I'm going to show you how she can make your life easier. So if we go into my ChatGPT, and I will make this link available to you, you will see that we are working with Parker. And yes, a little nod to Stan Lee using the alliteration. I'm also a child in an adult body. So Parker Promptwell, yes, very literal, but that's good because you don't have to remember what does Parker do. So my number one use for Parker is to take my prompt template and turn it into a specific prompt for something I'm working on. So Parker is really, really easy to use. Just the first thing is ask Parker to share her prompt template. And this is really, truly, I created this so you don't have to think. So basically, if you are looking to create something or do something, Parker has a template for you. So, as an example, she wants to know what your objective is. And by the way, a lot of people get confused by the word objective. Think of it as the big goal that you want, not necessarily what you need to do today, but what's your big picture goal. With Parker, you can be a little more tactical, but I still like to have the high level strategic objective here because that guides all that we do. Next thing is if we have specific feedback or goals, we want to share that with Parker. If there's a format or style that we want, do we want it to be conversational, technical? Do we want clarity? Do we want simplicity? Give Parker some guidance. And then this is, I think, the thing a lot of people miss is the audience or the context. Who is the receiving person for whatever you're going to create? So if you have a specific avatar, which we do in all of our work, you would share it here. Now, the next thing is you want to give Parker a role. So, for example, she might be a business coach. She might be a LinkedIn advisor. Give her a specific role. Now, if you've got examples of things that you've done already that you like, for example, if you've written a blog post and you want Parker to write other blog posts using that language, you can give her an example and say, here's a blog post I wrote. I would like you to analyze it and include it. Now, give her some guidance as to how detailed the response should be. What kind of structure do you want? Things like that. And I like to add some ethics and bias. You want to make sure if you're in an industry that ethics is important, well, I would expect most industries ethics should be important. You want to include any constraints. If there's known biases or anything you want to consider, and then you want to give Parker some latitude and some control over problem solving. Do you want her to create something fresh and new, or do you want her to follow some set patterns? So if you're in a rigid industry where this is the way we do things, you're going to want to limit her problem solving abilities to finding the best solution within a stack of pre-approved ones. Now, we can get into performance monitoring. Basically, this is an iterative process, so I would share answers to some of these. I'd ask Parker for some input and basically go back and forth until I'm happy. And I like to build in feedback loops or collaboration in some respects so we can always improve the prompt. And then I look at it, for example, if I'm hosting a podcast and I want to create content, I'm going to update this fairly regularly because my audience will refine, revolve, evolve. I want to get clear. So one of the things we do in the Catalyst crew, we have our core objectives, we have our audience, our perfect prospect persona, etc. So I'm going to cheat just a little bit. What information can you? So in this case, if you're a podcaster, and you can use this to create other forms of content, whether you want to use a blog post or you want to create social media, just tell Parker what you're hoping to accomplish. And the goal of the show notes is to help our okay. And if you can think of a use case where you're using data to make decisions, Parker can help you. So we are, in this case, we've already defined our avatar as Maya Morgan. So we know a little bit about her. And based on that, here's what our prompt looks like. Call to action. Let's test this out. I am okay. So let's just use this one. So this is an actual episode of my podcast, and this is a pretty decent now because I did this episode myself. Um, so this is actually a pretty decent first pass. Now, normally what I would do is I would give feedback and say more of this, less of that. Could you give me hashtags, things like that? Um, and in this case, it's suggesting a bonus is sign up for a free guide. We could actually ask it to create that guide. But basically, this is in a nutshell how I use Parker Promptwell and my prompt template to create prompts in ChatGPT. And by the way, if you use the paid versus free version, you can add that in context and say, okay, I'm using the free version, so optimize the prompt for version 3.5 or whatever your version is. But this is magical because it will help you create the prompt you need to get the best results the first time. Now, from a workflow point of view, once I have a prompt that I like, I save it somewhere, whether it's in a Google Doc or a Word document, so that I can always find it in context. So in this case, I would take this particular prompt that I'm happy with, and I would save it within context, which means I would put it in my podcast folder. And I just save it. In this case, it's a Word file because that's how I'm managing it. And I would put it in this file. And what I do is I'll give it a meaningful name. So maybe it's transcript cleanup or show notes creation, whatever it is, so that I can just copy and paste next episode. And that, my friends, is how Parker Promptwell can help you create better prompts, therefore getting better results out of ChatGPT. If somebody tells you that ChatGPT doesn't work or creates nonsense, the reality is it's probably because they don't know how to create proper prompts. So rather than figuring it out on your own and spending hours and hours and hours learning it, my goal is to save you time. So I introduce you to Parker. Feel free to ask her for any advice or insights that you need on how to create better prompts.